Hello world, Frida Darty and Patricia O'Connor here. Today on the Bonsai Balcony we are going outside, well kind of inside outside, to play a bit. I have a really nice day here. It's blue skies, it's kind of cool out but warming up. It was mid 60s this morning. It's just now kind of up to the 70s. About 2 o'clock. We're gonna wait and see whether or not it's a cool day or a hot day. It's kind of like it hadn't decided. But the last couple of days have been fairly dry, a little breezy, and we've had a few little issues. Fall is the time for issues if you're not on top of things. Or if you are on top of things, you can still, catching issues as they come up still sometimes means they hit you at least for a minute. What I'm getting at is, I mentioned earlier that I had to treat a few of my trees for aphids, the little red dots that appear where they're eating the nectar out of the tree. So I went back over that and started spraying neem on the infected trees. And while I was at it, I applied neem to the oaks. And it's also quite warm out, but the day of light, the amount of light is changing, and whereas my oak trees are hanging in there and looking nice and producing, my coastal oak is producing all these shoots and still flushing out and just doing great guns. My cork bark oak is not doing quite as well. Just a quick look at our ponderosas and a quick look at our little nursery. Now, there are reasons why we have to watch out for predators right now. This is a good time to go through, and for me to go through and do my second dose of my systemic treatments, which is where I will take a teaspoon and measure out the gallons and add a teaspoon per gallon per container size on an estimate, and then water that through the trees. And they take that up, and then that will help them fight off things that would try to live in them, on them, eat them, any part of them. And that's what helps against a lot of, that is some hedge. But then we also have our soap sprays. There are several different varieties, and amongst those I tend to go with neem. And I was just having a conversation yesterday with another one of our viewers, and we were discussing how this place must smell, and even more than I let on. I've since since their conversation, I was noticing that I had more powdery mildew on my oak, my cork bark oak, than I had originally realized. This is the time of year for this guy to put out leaves like the coastal oak is doing, while at the same time it will typically shed some leaves. So while I was seeing that at first and remembering that we were doing a little bit of a leaf exchange this time of year, I started noticing that we were going through, and in fact I even mentioned it, we were going through quite a bit. So this guy is a little hard to treat when it comes down with powdery mildew. And the reason I say that is because the top of the leaf will appear nice and shiny and waxy, like good things have happened and you've done a little bit of treatment. But on the underside, it's got that silvery tint to it, that slightly dusted silvery tint to it, And that's the PM, or the powdery mildew, sucking the thing dry. So what I thought I would do yesterday before I noticed what it was is I thought maybe, I was just noticing that it was dropping leaves. And in the sunlight, it was even harder to see than it is now, which is still not easy to see. But to make matters worse, I can kind of see where in places where the foliage is really thick, that is where the humidity from the leaves aspiring goes up, and that's kind of like that added humidity or that moisture in these little pockets here. It's kind of like bring that on even more. Now, here's the thing. I was saying that we're going through new sprouts and stuff, but look, it has already laid quite a bit of our smaller foliage to bare. It's just laid it to waste. So rather than treat it and hope for the best, I am hanging out with it, giving it multiple treatments, making sure I get the bottom of the leaves from multiple directions. Now this guy's pretty much healthy. It's this isn't helping, but this is the time of year where it does lose some leaves, but not this many. And this is also the time of year where it flushes out leaves. So, maybe this guy will replace what it lost. Maybe I'm not losing all these branches. I hope not. I'm not going to worry about whether or not, I'm not sure. I don't think neem is going to hurt, necessarily harm these young shoots, but I know the powdery mildew will get them before the day is out. So that's kind of how it will affect a leaf, and that's kind of how it will affect several leaves if they're on a small shoot. So I'll go back through, I hose everything I see, I'll let it dry, I shake up my neem frequently, and I go back through again. And then after it dries, I can see the bottom side of some of the leaves were either missed were missed. There's just a lot of them. It's kind of like trying to spray paint something that's got a whole lot of sides to it. You can make it look thoroughly covered and then turn it just a little bit, and it'll look like it's completely unpainted. Okay, so that's kind of what I've done probably 3 times now in my attempt to knock back the powdery mildew on this guy. And then that means that I'm also smelling to high heaven of neem. So then go wash the hands, but I usually have brushed up against something with neem. So, yeah, it does smell like neem here at Frida's place at the moment. So, the time, fall is the time that these kind of things happen. This is also the time for to be on the watch for spider mites, aphids. A lot of times when the foliage on trees begins to change, it begins to lose, the trees change their hormones, and they change their priorities, and the leaves lose their color, and the predators move in on those tired, defenseless leaves, and that allows these guys to come in and get a free meal off of your plants and just start wrecking stuff. So there's something else that goes along with that. Now, some of you know that we've been doing our pine trees, and we've been trying to do our candle cutting and our basically our needle reduction on some of the potted pine trees. See, there's all kind of new growth coming out. So if we can stop this PM. And here in California, if you're not in certain places, I suppose if you have a good fenced-in yard and you set up a good perimeter, you might not have this to go through. But I live in an apartment, and the fence that encircles this place is just gray with powder. You know, we're encircled by a powdery mildew barrier, so I don't really have any hope of saying that these guys will ever be in an immune environment from that. Anyway, the whole thing about the new growth, it won't, this tree is supposed to be an evergreen. So if we don't lose these shoots and these new shoots that we were so proud of, that would be most awesome. But that's kind of what we're up against right now. Now, the other thing is, we were talking about our pines. You know that we do our needles, we do our candles, and we do our needle reduction. And whenever we do that, we lift up the fertilizer. These trees that are in oversized containers can still be fertilized. These guys in bonsai pots cannot be fertilized. So in the fall, sometimes they can get a little bit yellow while we're waiting on the needles to fully extend out to whatever length they're going to be this year. And then after that part, we can resume their feeding. Well, the reason I'm doing this little talk about that on Predator Chat is because that is also a prime time for your trees whenever they're coasting and they're starting to get just a slight tinge yellow from the lack of feeding, that the predators will turn around and attack your trees. Also, we did a lot to these guys. We did. We went to town on these guys. Some of these guys got styled. All of these guys got styled and repotted within the same year. And we did that because we live in a place where the growing conditions are very typically hospitable. We're hoping that gives us a little bank in the energy right there. And the other side of that is they were young, super healthy trees. So we're just gonna go, these were our teaching tools. Let's see how it comes out. And they came out really well. So now the idea is that we want to bring them home. But at the end of the day, we did style them and we did repot them and we did do root work all in the same year, which is sometimes risky. And we didn't lose trees by the sort of numbers that would indicate that we went too far. But some of our predators now might be having an easier time with trees that are slightly weaker than they would have been. Time will tell whether or not I actually zapped them of anything. So far as I can tell, these guys still have always looked like they're thriving, and whenever I discovered something or even discovered something late, they bounce back well. This guy was well and truly infected before I caught it, but I think we've got it now. And its color is coming back really nice. Everybody else has done a pretty nice job, and we're bringing everybody else along pretty well, but we do want to watch out for spider mites. We do want to watch out for powdery mildew. It's the time of year for both of those. It's the time of year for our trees to change their allocations from foliage to roots, and then some of that, the foliage gets a little vulnerable, and in that vulnerability, we open ourselves we open ourselves up to predators. First they move in on the leaves that it doesn't feel like it necessarily has to have, but then that's just kind of how they come in and start making themselves at home. So fall is beautiful. Fall, we get all these nice rusty colors on our bald cypress, and we also get some really cool colors on our maples. This thing last year made some just really beautiful colors. It'll be interesting to see what all the rain did as far as its sugar production, which in turn what effect that has on the colors we get out of that trident maple this year. But whereas my dawn redwood is still pushing out growth fast and furious, so that's good to see. It's buying us more chances and more options. But getting back to the topic at hand, I typically do a systemic treatment in the fall, and I do one in the summer, late spring. So that's better to me than kind of whistling in the dark and hoping nothing gets us. And I keep neem by. I have seen instances before where I've had trees be overtaken by it, or maybe my neem wasn't strong enough or something. But so far, I think I'm going to be able to hold this back. What happened yesterday was I decided to bring this tree in because it was the amount of leaves that I was losing caused me to wonder if not the afternoon light wasn't burning the foliage, because I was just seeing too many leaves drop a day. And when I brought it out of the direct light into the shade, that is whenever I was able to see that slight, the top of the leaves wouldn't show a powdery mildew because they just have this waxy look. And indeed, they would go from green to dead yellow without ever having a powdery look on the top, but it was on the bottom. And they make really great little umbrellas. You can hose down the top with neem, and that will protect the powdery mildew underneath. So if you are not spraying the leaves top and bottom, they tell you to always do that. In some trees it seems like you still kind of can get away with that. This guy does protect. The top of the leaves do protect the bottom of the leaves from whatever it is you're spraying. So if you want to get rid of the PM, you definitely have to be proactive. Get it on the bottom of the leaves. Look at these areas where the leaves are in there so tight and you probably didn't get enough air in there to allow that, it just got really humid. And that also means that whenever you spray for this, you have to be more diligent, because everything has got all those other leaves in there to protect the powdery mildew from your anti-measure. So once I brought it over here in the shaded area, looking at the bottom of the leaves, I went, yeah, no, that is definitely powdery mildew, and it is definitely on the majority of the leaves of this tree. So at that point, we did a quick dose, and then a couple of hours later, we did another dose. And then today, we've done 2. The one I did earlier today, and then let it dry, and then the one you just saw me do then. So yeah, that's a lot. But I would also say that the amount of leaves that have come off the tree since I took it out of the direct sun and started doing this, I may have let it get too far before I tried to get a handle on it. We'll see. I know that yesterday I didn't lose as many leaves. Once I brought it in, we had that 4 or 5 hours left in the afternoon where I would have gone out just before dark and another 30 or 50 leaves would have come off the tree. So instead of doing that, about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, I brought it over here, set it here, and we've been taking these anti-measures ever since. And I haven't seen that kind of leaf drop since I did that. So let's see what happens. This might, for that reason, this might need to be at least a partial two-parter. It's like on the next video, I'll at least dedicate some more to how this is going, and we'll do some follow-up. Yeah. All right, fall. It's cool, it's nice, it's pretty here. We've got a lot to enjoy. Yesterday I did my systemic treatment. Everybody, the little can, took care of the little guys. The medium can, the medium watering can took care of the medium-sized trees, and then I broke out the big jug for the bald cypress, and the big ponderosa. So yeah, fall is the time to worry about predators. Fall is the time to enjoy the color of the leaves, and fall is the time for our leaves to color and our change to go from foliage to roots. And yeah, that's kind of what happens there, and that's what our trees are doing, and that's kind of here. In just a minute, when all of this turns red on this cypress, we'll enjoy that. We'll enjoy that until it begins to look ratty, and then at some point when it's completely red colored, it's beautiful when it first does that. At some point we'll defoliate it, and then we will go through and make choices. There are too many here. Some of these were last year's choices. These that have been cut have already vipricated off, meaning they've made us two. So some of these that are long like this and uncut means that they weren't here last year, or they would have gotten cut off, or they would have gotten cut back. So I'll go through and make choices as to who this year is going to make the big league and who this year we cut back. And then once we've done that, I'll break out my chainsaw. I bought a chainsaw from the hardware store. It's a battery operated chainsaw, but it's a professional company, professional grade chainsaw. It's steel. And I'm going to do a little hollowing out on these features and clean up these edges and try to hollow that out a little so that when the tree responds to that with rollover, it'll look like it. That will be something that will heal naturally from. Whereas I think healing over these flat spots in here might come off a little artificial. And it's time to do something about that now, if not last year, but I think we'll still be okay. So yeah, that's just a little quick. That's just it. Don't quit picking off all the the pretty red foliage, Patricia. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. We'll probably bring in a ponderosa tonight and do something to it. If not, bring in one of our other pines, and it'll be a good time to do that. I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you, and yeah, be sure and keep your name or your treatments, or make a point to treatments like the systemic treatments. I do those twice a year. The neem, I keep that on standby as needed. This is a great time to watch out for spider mites or powdery mildew. If you want to look and see if you've got spider mites, put a white piece of paper underneath your tree and then give it one of those and see what falls off on the white piece of paper. And if you see specks, you've got spider mites, spray for those guys. They will evacuate the energy out of your stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.